Well, I got these welded up. The welds are not the best. I'm gonna have to do a little bit of grinding. But I guarantee this mount is never gonna break from plowing. So I'm gonna let these cool, grind them down, clean them up a little bit. And then I'm gonna reinstall them, put the cross member on. While I'm letting that cool, I am going to remove these 3 bolts, and I'm going to flip this little mount here onto the other side. So that's the side the lever is on the tractor, so I'm going to need to move that. So I already have my welder out, and I was just gonna weld this in instead of drilling, but it's really not that thick of metal anyway, so I think I'm just gonna try to drill it. It's gonna be kind of a pain, but at least then it'll be removable in case something's wrong and I need to pre-modify it, or if I ever want to move it back over here, you know, the holes will be there. So this thing put together. And just so you know, I'm not using these bolts permanently. I'm using these to mock this up. Alright. That one's the right side. These things are still kind of hot. Got to be like the worst fabricator ever. I'm grabbing a bunch of hot metal with sharp shavings all over it. No gloves. Started my garbage on fire earlier. Whoa, that's hot. I had this entire design in my head. That's just the way I am. It still needs some tweaking. This one seems to be off kilter a little bit. And I plan on putting spacers between the angle iron and the axle. But I have a tension deficit issues, and I don't plan anything out. I just have it in my head and then I go from there, and that's what I mind. So now I can build some kind of cable, linkage, whatever you want to call it. Use a rod, I don't know. That's gonna go from here up to this handle. And it's probably gonna have to be somewhat fancy because it can't hit the engine or any of this stuff or the clutch. So I'm gonna have to hook up a rod that comes out a little bit and then comes down to this. But that's why I had to flip this, put it on the left side. And as I mentioned, I'm gonna make some rods that go from that angle iron down there up to the frame of the tractor, and that's gonna support the bottom here, which is gonna actually take the brunt of the impact when plowing. But the angle is just perfect, 6 inches on center from the floor. That way the cutting blade hits the ground just right. In fact, I'm not claiming to be Mr. Professional or anything, but let's see how close to 6 inches on center we even are. So I'm just trying to mock together a lift device, and I drilled a hole through my handle, which I wasn't originally going to do, but I did it. And keep in mind there's a solid steel rod inside of this, and so I found where the top of the rod was, went a few inches above that, drilled a hole because it has to go down, and it works just fine. So I was kind of mocking together a bunch of pieces. I got this metal rod, 5/8 rod. You know, I got leftover chunks of metal from things I've taken apart, and I was mocking this up, and you're never gonna believe what happened. So I was looking at my extra metal, and I found this. This is a lift handle for my dethatcher, and I never put it on. And watch this. It literally is perfect. Like, you can't get any better than that. So now I'm kind of in the process of figuring out how, because there's science behind, and I've mentioned this in one of my other videos, there's science behind linkages and lift heights. Because if I hook it up like this, when I lift this all the way up, that plow could be 1.5 feet in the air. So you have to kind of get it in the right spot. So if you want the plow on the ground with the handle in this position, then you mount it like this, and then when you lift it, it'll only come up a few inches instead of 1.5 feet. Yeah, so I'm definitely gonna have to tweak something because that is heavy. And I think the blade goes way too high. But it's a start. This plow is extremely heavy. And I kind of knew going into putting this together that it would be. I don't know how to explain it, but if this mount right here were a lot higher and the point of connection to this handle were lower, it would be easier to lift. There'd just be a lot more leverage. But that solid piece of metal that's inside of this handle probably goes to about right there. So I can't really mount this low. So I don't know if, I honestly think I might just add an extension onto this handle. Find something to maybe bring it up to about right there. So maybe even put a handle on it so I have something to grab onto. That'll help a little bit. I'm gonna cut this at some point. I just don't want to cut it until I know where I want it. Down here I kind of thought about maybe making a new one of these that's taller, but then of course that'll mess up how cool this piece of metal is. I didn't understand how that went on my dethatcher, so I just never used it. There's so much counterbalance on the front that it's pretty easy to lift. But I'll work on it more here when I get some time. And don't think for 1 second that I'm not going to try this quick. It's funny, I'm putting all this work into building these snowplows for these garden tractors, and then I have a machine next to it that'll turn these garden tractors upside down and shove them in a snowbank. Thanks for watching.